Hi everyone. We're just 2 weeks away from Christmas now. And if you're anything like me, you're probably still searching or thinking about gifts for certain people on your Christmas gift list, never knowing what to get certain people. Anyhow, I hope today I can give you one idea, and I think it makes a good gift for a lot of different reasons and a lot of different types of people. So that idea is a bird feeder. Yes, a bird feeder. A bird feeder makes a great gift, especially for any outdoor loving people in your family, or maybe you have some bird lovers even. So a bird feeder makes a great gift. It's the time of year when most people feed birds as well, late fall through winter. I would argue that the best kind of bird feeder to get is a homemade bird feeder. So if you're handy with woodworking, or even if you're not handy with woodworking, you don't have to be that handy. You can make yourself a bird feeder. This one I just built the other day. It's a fairly large feeder. It's replacing another one I had up in our north woods that eventually deteriorated and broke down. So I just rebuilt a new one, and it's very simple. It just has a bottom, 2 ends, and 2 roof boards. The ends have holes cut out of them just to make it accessible for birds to come in either side they want to. Has a removable edge board on the floor here on the one side. I just drilled a couple holes in this chunk of wood that fit over these screws here to enable me to get in and clean it out easier. I sanded the bottom board here with a power sander just to make it smooth, because I built this feeder out of 1x12 white pine that's rough cut on both sides. These are cheaper types of boards to buy than the typical ones that are planed smooth on both sides. So I have to buy these fairly wide rough cut boards for bigger projects like larger feeders or any other project I'm working on. I used 1/2-inch exterior grade plywood on the roof, which I painted with exterior latex paint. And then I capped off the peak with a galvanized flashing just to give more water protection from going into the edges of the plywood, because it's the edges of the plywood that typically start breaking down, and why I want to give the roof at least some paint. I want to leave the rest of it plain to age naturally, so after a few months outside in the rain and snow and stuff, this yellowish colored new wood will start to gray up and become quite gray over time, and it'll blend in beautifully with the natural environment, which is a nice thing to have for a bird feeder. Birds don't care how fancy a bird feeder is. You'll see some people making all the fancy little edges and making bird feeders that look like miniature houses with doors and windows. And even though you can do that for your own pleasure, and the birds may still use it, they don't care about that. And sometimes it can go overboard, and the fanciness can actually deter birds, because sometimes the fanciness makes the feeder not all that usable by the birds. This is a simple tray feeder with a roof. This is fairly large, so a lot of different birds can come in here at one time. So you may have a couple chickadees down here and maybe a blue jay up here. So it's not so small that it restricts numbers of birds at any one time to a huge extent. You will sometimes get squirrels sitting in here and monopolizing the feeder, and personally, where I put this, I don't really care. I usually put enough seeds there that the squirrels can fill themselves up to their happy heart content, and birds still have enough to feed on as well. But this one I put right up on the side of a hemlock, so it's in a very natural setting. Chickadees and nuthatches and woodpeckers can fly right in quickly, grab a seed and take off. If you haven't built a bird feeder before, I'd encourage you to think about doing that, because these simple type of feeders are very easy to make. I typically use wood screws to assemble them. So outdoor deck screws, anywhere from 1.5 to 1 3/4 inches long typically. I will often pre-drill the holes so they don't crack the boards as you drill into them. And they form a nice strong connection. You can use nails as well. I would recommend Ardoc spiral nails of different lengths if you're going to do that. Anyhow, that's one kind of feeder. It's always nice to get a home-built article when you're getting something for Christmas. So anytime you can do that, it's a good option. I'm just going to show a store-bought feeder that I just purchased recently. Now I've actually got 2 of these already, and I really like them. It's an all-metal tube feeder. It's got a black painted metal mesh. The bottom and the top screw off to fill the feeder or to enable cleaning it on the bottom here. And you can see the roof has 3 flanges inside. You can see these flanges. And the tube has these 3 protrusions here that screw into these flanges, like so, just like that. Now it's solidly on there. Then you just hang it up to a tree branch or a metal stand if you have a bird feeding stand. These 2 black funnel-shaped objects in here are simply placed there to distribute seeds more evenly through the tube and not have them all go down at the same time. Also, the wedge or flared shape to these objects inside helps to push the seeds out to the side of the mesh, keeping the flow going more easily. And then, as I mentioned, the bottom also unscrews, just like the top, to enable you to clean it off better. All metal. The ones I've had out here so far have been out here for a few years and they're still in good shape. Haven't started to rust away yet or anything. This particular model is distributed by Perky Pet. Perky Pet, #1 in bird feeders since 1958. Wow, they've been around a while. Perky Pet, I think, from what I can read, is in Pennsylvania. But of course the feeders are made in China, as almost everything is these days. Well, it's kind of funny. It says manufactured and guaranteed by Woodstream Corporation, Locust Street, Pennsylvania, and yet it says made in China. Anyhow, it doesn't matter. It's a good little feeder. Unlike a lot of the feeders that you get in stores these days, which are plastic and they fall apart quickly, they deteriorate in the sun, break down and crack, which really irritates me. I hate to see stuff going to the landfill prematurely. The all-metal design of this is quite rugged and it will last, as I mentioned, for a number of years. I've still got the original ones I've purchased a few years ago, so they're doing good. But anyhow, this one's specifically made to feed black oil sunflower seeds. The size of the mesh is suited to allow birds to pick out those black oil sunflower seeds easily. And I've also used this with the sunflower chips, which are the sunflower seeds that have been shelled already. You can often buy those at the bird feeding stores too. They're sometimes broken down into smaller bits, but sometimes you get them as the larger full sunflower grains as well. But they feed nicely here. Some of those will fall through and land in the tray, but that's fine. Birds can come and pick them up there. This mesh design allows a number of birds to feed at once. So you may have 4 or 5 finches hanging on here. Sometimes you'll have a larger bird feeding here, like an evening grosbeak, and then you might have the smaller chickadees and nuthatches attaching or coming down on the tree. I hang this beside a tree trunk so the nuthatches and things can just jump over onto it. They seem to really like it. I frequently get hairy woodpeckers that come onto these and they seem to just sit there chipping away at them. They don't even seem to be feeding on them sometimes. Now, sometimes they do, but often they seem to just be pecking away, moving the seeds around, and it seems to be a satisfying pastime for them for some reason. You may see the bottom of this also has perforations, small holes throughout the bottom, which enable drainage when it rains and things like that. Anyhow, a really good little feeder, I find, and it's about $25 here in Canada. And I've picked it up at Canadian Tire, Home Hardware. Those are the 2 main places I've seen it, but it may be at other stores as well. And I'm sure in the States it's probably quite widespread. Anyhow, I just thought I'd mention those 2 feeders, or highlight those 2 feeders today, in case you're still wondering what to get that special person on your Christmas gift list. And as I mentioned before, there's nothing like a home-built item for Christmas, so if you want to try your hand at building a feeder, even if you've never done it before, I'd urge you to do that because it's a fun thing. So anyhow, I hope I've given you another idea for that hard-to-buy person on your list.